2, 3, 절. 오케이.
나는 하나님을 예배하는 예배자입니다. 내가 서 있는 곳 어디서나 하나님을 예배합니다. 향고운 거룩한 은혜들 영화요 내 마음 완전한 하나님 영화요 이곳에서 바로 이 시간 하나님을 예배합니다. 나는 하나님을 예배하는 예배자입니다. 내가 서 있는 곳 어디서나 하나님을 예배합니다. 내 영혼 거룩한 은혜를 영하여 내 마음 완전한 하나님 영하여 이곳에서 봐도 이 시간 하나님을 예배합니다.
Eventually, they made it to the palace, and at the palace, they were met by a butler. The butler met them at the front door, and he invited everybody in, and the first thing that he handed this young man was a box. And in the box were some clothes. Clean, simple clothes. And he had a moment. He looked around, and he saw everybody else was receiving the same box with the same clothes. All of a sudden, his joy turned into disappointment. He realized that if he put these clothes on, he would look like everybody else. No one would know that he was special. No one would know how hard he worked. No one would know that he had made sacrifices to get there. The king wouldn't know that he was different. The king would think he was just like everyone else. Suddenly, everything that he had worked on, all of his sacrifices, all of his money, everything that he had it seemed like a foolish endeavor to him. At the same time, he couldn't let it go. He had worked so hard. He had sacrificed so much. He had changed so much. He took the box, he put it under his arm, he made a decision, and he entered the palace. But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man was there who was not wearing wedding clothes. He asked, "How did you get in here without wedding clothes, friend?" The man was speechless. Then the king told the attendants, "Tie him hand and foot and throw him outside, into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few are chosen." When we read Jesus' parables and we hear about Jesus' parables in church, we often tend to identify with the righteous people. We tend to look at the older son in the prodigal son story and we say, we're the older son. When the sinners come back, we need to accept them. We look at the fertile ground in the parable of the sower and we say, of course we're the fertile ground. We're the ones we're in church. Of course we're the fertile ground. We're ready to receive the seeds. We're the good Samaritan. We're the wise bridesmaids with the extra oil. But Jesus told these parables to people just like us. And Jesus told these parables not to reassure us of our own righteousness and the good things that we're doing. He actually told us these stories to expose our hypocrisy, the flaws in our approach to God. What if we're the actual target of this parable? What if we are the man in the wedding? How many of us can relate to the first part of the story? Most everybody in here worked extremely hard. There's many immigrants in here who came here with no money in their pockets, and they made a life for themselves. And that's how we ended up where we are today. In fact, if we read the first part of this story, it sounds a lot like most of the people in here. It sounds like my mother. It sounds like my father. And just like them, just like this man, I think we have a difficult choice because of the mindset that we have. I think that this decision that this man had to make all of a sudden was a lot more difficult than we think. We read this story and we've heard the story many times, and we think all he had to do was put on clothes and walk in. But there was a far more difficult decision that he had to make. He had to make the decision of whether he was ready to recognize that everything that he had worked on, everything that he had sacrificed, all the good judgment he had displayed in his life, all the good decisions that he had made in his life, was it not good enough? Was it all worthless? Was it all meaningless? And wouldn't we all feel the same way? If we had to drop everything today and if somebody came and told us that everything that we had in this life was meaningless, wouldn't we also feel the same? In Korean, we use the word 아까워. It's so precious. How can we afford to lose such a thing? Let me see if I can get caught up. Okay, let's look at this table briefly. You'll notice that on the left side, I have a table showing what the man's clothes represent and what the wedding garment represents on the right side. On the left side, we have hard work. He worked very hard to earn the money for those clothes. On the right side, grace, mercy, forgiveness is freely given. It's something you can't earn. It's just given to us. On the left side, we have self-reliance. He earned every single dollar that he had. Nobody helped him. He worked really hard for that, and he deserved it. On the right side, he has no clothes without the king. He's utterly dependent on another person. On the left side, he wears nice clothes, and everyone recognizes that he's different. We have nice cars. We have a nice house. We have nice clothes. Everyone in here is wearing nice clothes, and when we walk out these doors, people recognize that we're different. They know we're different because we're wearing nice clothes. And we crave that respect. We love that respect. We love that respect that other people give us. Who doesn't love when they buy a brand new nice car, when everybody gathers around and goes, wow, what a nice car. Can I sit in it? Can I look in it? Oh, how did you afford to buy whatever? On the right side is compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Colossians 3 says that the clothes that we put on represent an external view. We're not looking internal to how people view us. We're looking at how we view people outside of us. Security. If he's buying nice clothes, it means he has enough money. He has enough food. He has enough money for a house. He has money to spend on frivolous things at this point, such as nice clothes. On the right side, in 1 Corinthians 15:53, it says that when we throw away our old selves, we pick on eternal security, something that's far more important than this earth. Unfortunately, when we look at this table, I don't know a single person in here who would discourage the qualities on the left. We admire those qualities. We like people with those qualities, and if people don't have those qualities, we say bad things about them. And when we look at the right, I think we see a lot of words that actually don't have any transferability into our actual lives of how we live our lives. They mean nice things and we know they're good things, but we don't actually apply them in our lives. These things are so precious to us, our accomplishments, our possessions, our abilities. How can all this not be good enough? If you read the Bible, I think the translation might be off here, but I'll try my best here. The Bible is full of stories of people who thought that their best efforts were good enough. Cain thought his efforts were good enough. The Tower of Babel was literally human effort to try to reach the heavens. King David counting his people. He's reminded by his general, hasn't God blessed you enough and won't he bless you more? Why do you need to count your people? Is this not your pride? And he still insists on counting his people. King Nebuchadnezzar, the Pharisees, everybody gets so caught up in themselves. And I would say if those great men, and I would say they are great men, made those mistakes, it's arrogant and foolish of us to think that we don't fall into the same trap ourselves. I think we're on the right one. Okay, let me bring you an example. If you don't believe me, if you don't believe what I'm saying, and if you think you're different, don't raise your hands if you're embarrassed, but many of us in here may own some investments. We may own some stocks. And when you own stocks, sometimes you make money and sometimes you lose money. When we make money, what do we say? I made a good judgment call. I've been reading the market. I've been paying attention, and God blessed me. When we lose money, we say, oh, I made a bad decision. Oh, that was bad timing. But we do not say, God cursed me. In other words, we attribute God when something good happens, and because we don't attribute him when our finances go down, in essence what we're saying is, God really is not involved in our finances, actually. And when we say that God blessed us when our investments go up, that's just something we say, but we don't really mean. What we really believe in our hearts is that we did all that. We made the right call. It's funny to me, and it's not just this church. I've been to many churches, and I think Korean churches are unique because of the immigration experience. I've heard many people who came into church within these building walls and talked to other church members about a great business opportunity. The timing is right. If you do this, your family will be taken care of for the rest of your life. Your children will have a college fund, but you need to get in now. We need to do this so that you can secure your future. We've all heard this, right? We've all heard this. And in some cases, we have people come into church and steal money from other people using these promises and lies. And we tell these lies sometimes right after a sermon where we are told that we should trust God more. And we immediately turn and trust ourselves again. Another example of this, consider how reluctant we are. Everybody in here at this point in our life knows somebody who we don't like to give money to. Whether it's a family member, a friend, or even the homeless person who's out in the street, we don't want to give them money. And the reason we don't want to give them money is because they don't deserve it. They didn't work hard. They're lazy. They didn't make the same sacrifices as we did. They exercise poor judgment. And guess what? If we give them money, they're just going to waste it all, and they're going to throw it all away. But notice we don't say, God didn't bless them. We say they made poor decisions and they made bad decisions, but God blessed us. In other words, what we're saying in here is that we're really saying that I made right decisions, I made good decisions, and I'm once again giving lip service to God because I feel like I should do that, but really I think I made good decisions. I worked hard for this money. And because of that, we're afraid of losing this money, and we don't want to give it to anybody. And we certainly don't want to share it with people who we think will waste it. By the way, my point here isn't that we should take our money and give it away to everybody, even if they might waste it. What I'm saying is I'm trying to highlight, or rather expose, our belief system in how we actually view money. And that we view money as ours, and we view money as hard worked rather than an actual blessing from God. Because of that, we think we're actually in control, and so we take measures to protect everything. Everyone here was around in the Bay Area in the early 2000s. And in the early 2000s, we had a huge housing boom in the United States. Home prices were rising, I think they said 20% year over year. And everybody started to buy homes, everybody got into the market, and everybody thought they were okay. In 2006, the Federal Reserve raised the interest rate, and all of a sudden, people found that they couldn't afford their mortgage payment anymore. A lot of folks had an adjustable rate mortgage, 5-year loan, and at the end of that 5 years, that interest was then tied to whatever the Federal Reserve said. So your interest rate of 4% suddenly rose to 13%, 18%, and people started to go bankrupt. My first home that I bought in 2004, and I sold in 2009. So you can imagine I lost money with everybody else. In my neighborhood in Wheatland, everybody lost their homes. Most of them got divorced. I was young and single, so I was lucky, but most everybody lost their homes, and they lost their jobs at the same time. 9 million people at that time period lost their jobs. I think we forgot about that. But up until that day, everybody thought it was okay. Everybody thought things were good. Up until 2006, I remember looking down my neighborhood. People were buying new cars, new trucks, new boats. And everybody, when we talked about to each other, they were talking about the next house they were going to buy. They were talking about that 20% year-over-year gain, and they thought they were doing well. And then all of a sudden, everything came crashing down. And there's some people today who go, okay, that's fine. One, I have my house and I live in it and I own it and I have stock. I have my savings account. But it's not uncommon. In 1929, when the banks saw their investments in the stock market crash go away, they froze everyone's savings account and people lost access to their savings overnight. So even the money that we have saved away can be taken away in an instant. And we all know the story about the old lady who put money in the walls of her house and one day the house burned down. There's nothing you can do to protect these things that we have. We actually have far less control that we have. And what happens is we realize we don't have much control and we start becoming fearful. And the reason we become fearful is because we actually don't trust in God. We don't actually trust that He's going to take care of us. We don't trust that He's actually able to take our lives and take us to somewhere safe. So when we face difficult things, what do? We might pray, but we certainly don't sit back. We don't sit back. What do we say? You got to put a fire in your eyes, you got to light a fire under your butt, and you need to get to work. So we double down on our efforts. We do more. We buy insurance next time to protect our money. We vote for politicians who say that they're going to take care of our precious things or will secure our investments. We save more money. We hide more money. We take some money. We diversify it. Some is in the bank. We'll bury some money in the ground outside. We'll put some in a savings deposit box. We scatter our money in all different ways to do what? Protect ourselves. And when we do that, what are we saying? We're saying to God, I don't trust you can take care of me. Just in case you don't take care of me, I need to be prepared to take care of myself. I know I do it, and I know there are people in here who do it as well, too. We end up showing how little we trust God. And I'll give you a good example. I'll point the finger at myself. Often I talk to my wife and I tell her, don't worry too much about money. If we lose everything, we'll make the money back again. We'll be fine. God will take care of us. I say that. What I'm really saying is, even if we lost all of our money and lost everything that we have, I have confidence in my professional abilities, my work ethic, my skills. I think I can make the money back. I'm not saying that God will provide the money back for us again. When I tell my wife that, I might mention God, but what I'm really saying is, I think I can earn the money back. Would I say the same things if I lost my arms and my legs and my ability to speak? Would I still say the same thing to my wife and say, God will still take care of us? Probably not. So even the things that I say, I actually trust myself more than I trust God. Jesus' Sermon on the Mount becomes words only. Yes, God loves us more than the flowers and the birds. But it's just nice words. And then we go past it. Jeremiah says that God has good things planned for us, plans to prosper us. Yeah, well, that's good things that happen if you work really hard for them. So we exhaust ourselves and we demonstrate our limited trust in the Heavenly Father. God's power is limited in our mind, and it's distant. It's far from us. When we need Him, He's not going to help us. We need to be ready to help ourselves. In my church in Korea, in Songtan, there was a pastor, and he gave a sermon recently. And he said it's interesting how we live our lives. He said, we are so excited about our birthdays. We're excited to celebrate our birthdays. We're excited to buy a car and pay off the car. We're excited to buy a house and pay off the house. We're excited to send our kids to college. We're excited to retire. We're excited to get past all these major milestones. And every time we reach these milestones, we feel a sense of happiness. And when we feel that happiness in our body, a chemical is released. That chemical is called dopamine, and we feel really good for a second. But he asked us, when you've done all these things and there's no milestones left to accomplish, what's left? You have no more events to give you dopamine. The only thing left is death. So he said these people who are constantly focused on buying a house, paying it off, retiring, generating a savings account, are doing nothing but preparing for death. What he said is when you do that, you're showing that you have a drug addiction, kind of like a drug addiction like that, to your milestones, to control in your life, and all you're doing is living a life with a mindset of death. And he asked, what if we could switch that though? What if we actually felt gratitude for the things that we had in life? What if we really, truly in our hearts believed that everything that we had in this earth was given to us by God? Wouldn't we feel different? Every meal would taste better if we thought that it was a gift from God. But we don't. Every meal that we have, we believe that's because we earned enough money, we bought the money, and then we stored it away. This is a Korean church, so there's probably more than 2 refrigerators in everybody's house here. And it's stocked full of food, just in case, right? And so when you eat your delicious meal, you go, that's because I stored all this food away and I'm prepared for this day. It's because I gathered enough manna for the second day that I have enough food. We have a hard time gathering only enough manna for today and then trusting and relying on God to give us manna the second day. And because of that, the food doesn't taste good to us. The food tastes like an obligation. The food tastes like a goal in and of itself. Every dollar that we have in our hands, it would be different if we realized how fortunate and how blessed we were to have money. If we looked at that money and realized that that was truly a gift from God, we wouldn't clutch it so tightly. If we lost it, we wouldn't be worried because we would know that God would give us some more. And the second thing is, we'd be willing to share it. I often talk to my children and I say, you guys don't appreciate anything. I buy you guys toys and you guys don't appreciate the money that I spend to buy you things. And they say, yeah, because you got more money, you'll buy me more things. And I think that's bad, but what if we had that mentality? What if we looked at the things that we had in life and said, it's okay if I lose these things because God, you'll give me more. My kids never put the caps back on the markers. And then I look and they're all dried out. And then I buy them more markers. They know I'll do that, and they trust me. What if we trusted God the same? We need to shift our mindsets. We need to learn to enjoy today's manna instead of worrying about tomorrow's manna. Unless we recognize that everything we have is from God, we'll never really thank Him for it. And if we never thank Him for it, we'll never learn to have peace and enjoy life. The mindset that we live is a mindset of work, slavery, and death. God is trying to give us a mindset of life and peace, but we have a hard time accepting it. We have 2 folks in here who played piano, and I saw, how many times have you played I Surrender All during the offering? Probably more times than not, right? And one of the most common songs that we hear during the offering is I Surrender All. And we go, here's my $5, I surrender it. Here's my $1, I surrender it. I'm done. Job all done. I have surrendered all. And then we go home. Is that what it means? Surrender, and I'll bring up a military example here. In our code of conduct, in the armed forces, we say something. We say, I will never surrender of my own free will. I'm only going to surrender if I absolutely have to. What does surrender mean? Surrender means hands in the air. And when you put your hands in the air, what are you showing? You're trying to show that you have nothing in your hands. No guns, nothing. Surrender means that we're absolutely going up with saying we have nothing in our hands, no conditions. I trust you, God. I give it up. What do? We surrender to God like this. I surrender, God. I got to kind of hold on to my car because I know I need my car. I need my bank accounts. I need my wallet. So I'll surrender like this. We surrender with conditions, and we surrender while we hold on to control. We're unwilling to hand things over to Him. I trust you, God, but I still need to do this. I still need to have this. I need to keep working. I still need to do this. Today, I'm asking that we take an honest and honest look and we re-examine our lives. What are we holding on to in our lives? What are the things that we're refusing to let go of control of? What are the things that we think we need to do, otherwise our lives will not be okay? How do we demonstrate our lack of trust to God daily? I think it's a bigger problem than we think, and it's no wonder that in Luke 8:8, Jesus says, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? And he's talking to us. He's looking at us and saying, when I come back someday, am I going to find faith amongst you guys? Or are you still going to be holding on to your wallets? If you reread Hebrews 11, you'll see just a long list of people. And it's not a long list of people who have done great things. It's a list of people who have demonstrated complete surrender and faith in God and surrendered everything and handed everything over to God and let God take care of them and lead them. Without surrender, we'll never experience peace. And if we don't have peace, why would anybody want to join us? I look at the churches that we have today, and in general, the Christian church is shrinking, and we know that. And I look outside of the world, and I see people who are tired, weary, burdened, heavy laden. And when they want rest, they don't come to the church. Why is that? God says, come to the church, meet me, I'll give you rest. But people don't believe that statement. Why? Come to our church and look around. We're more burdened than they are outside. We have the same worries. Come in here and ask us if we're worried about money. We're all worried about money. Are we worried about our house? We're all worried about we're as worried as they are. And then we have the Christian guilt piled on top of it. We look worse than them. Why would they come join us? We don't show peace. We don't show that God has given us rest. I'm not rested right now. I'm tired right now, right? There's so much that we have been doing over the past 6 months. My family is trying to stay in Korea for another year, and you wouldn't believe the amount of work that we have to do to stay in for another year. The amount of times that I've prayed to God to help me take care of things is probably about 0.01% in comparison to all the work that I did to keep my family in Korea. It's immense. Obviously, I haven't surrendered. I look at my friends who don't believe in God, and it's funny, they look a lot more peaceful and relaxed than I am. I look at the story of Job often, and the book of Job tells the story of a man who lost everything. He lost his house, he lost his family, he lost all of his money, he lost his kids. And yet, somehow, he finds a way to trust in God. And I think that it wasn't a single moment. It wasn't that moment when he lost everything that he made a decision to trust in God. I think it was a series of decisions. It was a lifestyle. It was a mindset. It was a number of things that he did to build that trust in God, to recognize that God had given him everything that he had, and that God would give him more. Why else would he say, the Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away? It's not I giveth, I earned, and I lost it. It's God gave me all these things, and he could give me more. As a result, when at the culmination of it, Job says, even if God were to kill me, I would still trust in him, I would still hope in him, because he's my salvation, and he would find a way to save me. This isn't an easy process. Adopting a mindset like Job is not an easy thing. My mother just said amen. It's so easy to say amen in church. And many of us do that. We nod our heads and go, that is good. That was true. That was profound. And I'm glad I learned something. But to make changes in our mindset requires a fundamental change that is not easy for us to do. For us to get from where we are to Job is not an easy thing to do. For us to get to a point when we're ready to drop all of our clothes and accept the new wedding garments and forget everything that we worked so hard for, that doesn't happen in one moment. It's a thing that we have to build towards and we have to make a part of our life. One of the most effective organizations out in the world is called Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous has helped tens of thousands of people kick the addiction of alcohol. But the thing that they make people do first, does anybody know what they say? They say, hi, my name is Josh, and I'm an alcoholic. The first thing they have to do is they have to admit that they have a problem before they can fix things. How many of us have ever said, "Hi, my name is Josh. I have an addiction to control. I don't trust God. I don't trust God to take care of me. I trust me." How many of us are willing to make that scary statement? But unless you admit that you are broken first, unless you stop lying to yourself, we're not going to see a change in our lives. I want to close out today I took Alcoholics Anonymous. They have 12 steps. And I took the 12 steps and I shrunk them down into 9. By the way, I realize I am leaving a heavy burden for us for the rest of our lives. I'm also leaving a burden for Pastor because I'm not really giving solutions. What I'm talking about today is just a bit of a flash of exposure to look at ourselves and be honest with ourselves. There's a long road ahead of us, and that long road ahead involves coming here to church, hearing what Pastor has to say, listening to our Sabbath school lessons, and seeing what are the different elements and what are the different ways that we can relinquish our lives and control of our lives to God. And it's a difficult, long step that we have ahead of us. It's a process that many of us have been living for a long time. Step 1, I acknowledge I am powerless. I can't stop my addiction to control by myself. If I try to do that, I'm just going to be very tired and angry with myself by the end. Step 2, I believe that a power greater than me can help me. Step 3, I will conduct a thorough moral inventory and identify all the areas where I lack trust in God, and I'll write it all down. Where are the places where I don't trust God? I'll write it down and I'll admit it. I'll admit to God, myself, and another human being the extent of my addiction to control. Step 6, I will ask God to help me remove my pride. Unless I drop my pride, unless I drop my, what we call 자존심 in Korean, we're never going to be able to make the next step. Because once we remove our pride and we've said we can't do this on our own, I will ask God's assistance in surrendering control. Then I will willingly turn over my will and my life to the care of God. And the last step is super important. I will then take this life of peace and carry this message of love to others and live a life of happiness and freedom. These steps are critical, and they need to go in that order if we're going to find our life of peace someday. And I humbly ask for your prayers for me. I ask for your prayers for one another, and I ask for your prayers for yourselves as we begin a new journey of surrender together and enter a new life of peace and surrender in God. Thank you so much.